Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Thursday, January 21st afternoon. I'm Phil Mason, and glad you could join us here for Tech Tips Live. We are looking forward to a great lineup here in 2021. We have put together our first about 8 months of Tech Tips Live topics, and those will be getting up on the website here shortly. We have the February one up there, and I'll get a few more months up after today's meeting. But as always, I welcome any feedback from those of you on our call today. You can email me, phil@hertzler.com. We would love to hear from you. If you have ideas, if you have things you'd like to see us cover in a Tech Tips Live, I welcome those ideas from those of you who are out there actually using it every day and kind of working in the trenches. So again, thanks so much for joining us. And if you have colleagues that you think would find this information useful, we do post the recordings, and those will be up here in a day or two on our webpage as well as in our YouTube channel. So Jacob, you want to go ahead and move us to the next slide? So I gave it all away. Again, I'm Phil Mason, be your host here today. One of the exciting things, great things for 2021, at least from my viewpoint, is that Jen Miklick will be joining us some this year as a host. And so her and I will be splitting the hosting duties. And I think your favorite Hertzler sales rep, Adrian Depew, will also take a couple of them as well. I get tired of hearing my own voice on the recordings, and I know you all probably like to have some variety too. So we will have them joining us for some of these calls as well in the future. And we look forward to that. Jacob is going to be joining me today as our technical resource. How you doing today, Jacob?
Doing all right. It's nice and sunny in Goshen.
I know it's beautiful. It is sunny, and we have just a little bit of snow on the ground. So and it's above mid-30s, so it's pretty fantastic for us here in the winter right now, and we are enjoying that. So don't have a whole lot of opening here today. We are looking at GainSeeker 9.4. Here's your first look at it. Jacob has been spearheading a lot of the development with our developer team on the new things in 9.4, and so he's going to go over a couple of those big items for us. We will have a fair amount of time for questions today. So down at the bottom of your screen is the Q&A box there. If you have questions, please put them in there, and we will answer them as we get those. If you have something that comes up as Jacob's showing something new, feel free to ask then, or we can get to the end and we'll have some time there as well. I don't really have anything else. Been showing our platform. You know, one of the things we try to do throughout our TTLs through the year is to hit on different areas within the platform. And today it's just overall GainSeeker, the core of the product. Next month is February. We're planning kind of another one of our tips and tricks, Tech Tips Live. So we'll be looking at time savers. You know, what are those little things that we know that the programmers have put in there that maybe isn't always obvious to users? And those things can just be so helpful, and we'll have a whole list of those coming in February. So Jacob, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right, thanks, Phil. So these are the major highlights for version 9.4 that we're going to be going over today. You can see that there's 6 major enhancements, and then got a slide with some of the smaller things that we're adding in 9.4. We're really excited about this version that should be coming out in the next 2 months or so. So we're going to start with a couple of enhancements that are in Inspection Editor and PC Collect. The first one, which is I think maybe one of the biggest ones in this version, is that we expanded the note window in PC Collect. So when operators are entering a note for a test, They can now view the traceability and data that would be submitted for that test. So you can see in the screenshot over on the right-hand side, I've got data and traceability values that would be submitted for this numeric input. This is really helpful and very useful because operators can now have more context when they're prompted for a note. So that'll hopefully help operators write better notes. This extra pane of information can be viewed by clicking on an arrow in the top right of the note window. The next thing that we added to Inspection Editor and PC Collect is a new test to collect OEE data. You can enter as many of the 5 components to OEE that you track. If you don't use all 5 components, that's also no problem. You simply need to enter the data that you want to save. You have a few options for how this test will submit data. You can have the test submit its own DMS data record, or you can attach the values from the test to another DMS test on the same sub-inspection and store the OEE values that way. So as usual, in our release preview Tech Tips Live, we're going to have a fair amount of demos. So we're going to go ahead and start the first one. So you can see here I've got Inspection Editor open to inspection. That's going to show these 2 new features. So you can see I've got a numeric input up here and a couple traceability. So I'm going to go ahead and run this sub-inspection. And I'll pull PC Collect over here. So let's look at the expanded note window. So I've got a numeric input, some pre-filled traceability values. So I'm going to go ahead and enter some values that I know are mostly bad. And then I'm going to click the note button if the operator was forced to enter a note. And then you can see up here in the top right corner of the note dialog, we've added this arrow. If I click that, the panel expands with the data values that were entered for this numeric input, and then the traceability values that would be stored with it. PC Collect will remember the operator's preference for whether or not they want this arrow expanded or collapsed. So the operators won't actually have to click on this every single time they open the note dialog if they want to see that data. So I'm going to quit out of here, and then I've got another sub-inspection set up with the OEE test. You can see that we added it here. It's got the gears like you're used to seeing in GS charts. So I'm going to go ahead and run this one. And you can see over on the left-hand side that I can enter any of the 5 components to OEE that are used to calculate the 3 different OEE stats and then the final OEE stat. So I'm going to go ahead and enter some numbers into here. You can see as I'm entering these numbers that the statistics over on the right-hand side are calculating. So, and those are color-coded based on the settings that you have set in system administration. There are options with this test to turn off showing the calculations if you don't want your operators to see the final stats. There's also options in Inspection Editor to set default values for fields and to make the fields mandatory and disabled. So let's say that you knew for sure that your ideal cycle time was a certain value. You could set that and then disable the field so the operators wouldn't be able to change it. The next couple features that we're going to look at are in GS charts. So we've added a new chart type. We've actually added 2 new chart types in 9.4. The one I'm going to show today is the Sparkline chart. This allows you to view up to 625 control charts at the same time. The charts in the view are color-coded by real-time failure. There's options for whether you want to see only the latest failure or the most important failure for each chart as the background color. You also have the option to only show charts that had failures instead of showing all charts. So here's an example of how that might look. You can see that some of the charts are white because they didn't have any failures. Some of the charts are red, some are pink, some are gray. And those have to do with whether or not the failures, or excuse me, those have to do with what the latest failure was when running that part number. In order to investigate one of these charts further, I can right click and select chart Sparkline data, which is highlighted there. And then I'd be able to view a full chart of just that part number. Another really cool feature that we added in 9.4 to GS Charts is a new right-click menu option named Chart Bar Data. When you click on a bar or a point from an OEE chart, this allows you to drill down into a bar or point and see the data behind that value. This also allows you to easily view like a Pareto chart of defects behind an OEE bar. The third major feature that we added to GS Charts is localization. GS Charts will be available in Spanish and French starting in 9.4. Similar to PC Collect, we've added a new language menu option, so users can choose what language they want to use while they're using the application. There's also a user setting in system administration that I've got a screenshot of here on the top of the slide, so you can set the preferred language for the user. You can also force the user to use a specific language using a command line argument. And GainSeeker is smart enough to automatically detect what language you have Windows running in. And so if you don't set any of these things, it'll use the language from your workstation. While all of the user-facing text that's included in GainSeeker by default has been translated, there are some items that are not automatically translated. This includes the dashboard configuration screens and any user-defined labels that you would have in your application. If you need to show specific error messages or analyst messages in a dashboard, for example, and you would want to show a different error message or message depending on the language that the application is currently running in, you can use a new Python command that's login.language in order to get the current language. So let's go ahead and look at GS Charts. So you can see in the language menu up here, this is something new we added. I can change it to Spanish, and then it allows me to view all of GainSeeker charts in Spanish. So let's flip back to English, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up the OEE charts and select our OEE pack 1 and just draw a normal OEE chart. So while I'm looking at this chart, it looks like week 1 from 2020 is pretty low. So now with our new chart bar data, we're going to be able to figure out why that is. So I'm going to go ahead and click chart bar data. I'm going to select defects as a % of total sample size. And now I've got a Pareto chart that shows me what defects are contributing to that low OEE value. It looks like we've got issues in multiple departments, mostly perf and qual. So we may need some more investigation to figure out what's going on. Another really useful part of chart bar data is I can click on it and select a data table. And then I'll just see the records that are being shown. that contribute to that bar.
So Jacob, a quick question about again, the language setting.
Yeah.
You came in default in English, you went up to the language menu option, changed it to Spanish. If you then had done some charts, you left, when you came back in, would it be in Spanish or would it default back to English? And to kind of fix the language, does that need to be done in the configuration or even with the operating system?
Yeah, if you wanted to remember in between runs of GS charts, it's just like PC Collect. You need to set it on the user in sysadmin or have the workstation set up to be in Spanish.
Okay, great. So on the app like this, that language, it's really just a temporary thing. As I've come in, when I leave, it'll reset to what it was, or depending on what my user is. Good. Okay.
All right. Moving on, we've added two pretty cool features to Python in 9.4. The first one is bookmarks, and this is something that a lot of programmers are used to having from other development environments. So while you're editing a Python script, you can mark a line with a bookmark, and then you can use keyboard shortcuts or the right-click menu to navigate between all lines that have bookmarks. These bookmarks work between scripts, so you can pretty easily navigate back and forth between lines in different scripts. This is really useful if you're working in 2 or 3 or 4 different scripts at the same time. So you don't have to use the left-hand like search bar that displays all your Python scripts each time you want to flip back and forth between different spots and different scripts. The other major feature that we added was the ability to copy scripts between configurations. This one's really useful, let's say if you have a development configuration and a production configuration, because you no longer need to export and then import a bunch of script files in order to transfer the scripts between configurations. You simply multi-select the scripts that you want to copy and then copy them to your target configuration. This integrates really well with the script archive functionality that we added in 9.3. So I'm going to go ahead and show this. So I'm going to open an inspection editor again and get our Python editor open. So you can see I've got some script here that's inserting test data, and I used Control K there on a couple different lines to mark them with bookmarks. You can see them over here on the left side of the editor. You can also toggle bookmarks on a line using the right-click menu and then selecting toggle bookmark. And then I'm going to go to a different script. Yeah, let's do this one. I'm going to mark this one with a bookmark. And then using Control N, Control P, or this right-click menu, I can cycle back and forth between all the bookmarks in these scripts. So I'm going to go ahead and press Control N a couple times. You can see that I'm moving not only between bookmarks in the same script, but between scripts as well. The copy to configuration button is up here. Looks like an arrow coming out of a square. If I click this, I can choose what configuration I want to copy these scripts to. And then I can multi-select as many scripts as I want. If this is going to get copied to a configuration where the script already exists, then I can enter an archive message. So and then if I press copy here, it'll confirm that's actually what I want to do, and then copy those scripts to the target configuration. This is going to save a lot of time for people that have multiple configurations and used to spend a lot of time exporting and then importing files.
Well, not to mention the old classic having comments as to why you did it, which is always helpful.
Yes. So these are some other enhancements that we're adding to 9.4. You can now import list of traceability values from Excel. So you can see there on the bottom right of the traceability labels and lists window, there's now going to be an import button, and you can select a CSV with files and then select a column and it'll import those values. From anywhere in the system where you used to be able to send emails, you can now specify CC and BCC addresses. We expanded some options for dashboards so that they can now include multiple standard SVC charts. And we're making some improvements to the data canvas, including highlighting the data canvas control where the operator is currently typing and adding some additional tests to the data canvas. So that's our preview of the major features being added in 9.4. We're really excited about this version, and I'd expect that you'd be able to get your hands on the download sometime in the next 4 to 8 weeks or so.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Jacob. If you've got questions for Jacob that are related to this update or other things in GainSeeker, please use the Q&A feature here. A couple comments. Why don't you go back, Jacob, to that list, the summary list of the, yeah.
Yep.
So go ahead and we got some comments. You know, when we're doing these things, we have some of our own people on the line, so they're sending us notes under the table, so to speak. So Jacob, you want to talk a little bit about the note window?
Yeah. One of the reasons the expanded note window is helpful that maybe wasn't very apparent in my demo is that if you have a really long sub-inspection with a lot of numeric inputs, when the operator is prompted for a note, they might not be able to see the numeric input on the sub-inspection window. So while the operator could have, in my demo, like moved the note window off to the side in order to see the values, they wouldn't always be able to do that.
Yeah, the other, with the language, another option for getting language to someone is a command line control. That was one that got fed to us. All right. Question here. This is a little more off not on our topic here, but a general question. We'll give it to you here, Jacob. What about using a timer on dynamic desktops? Before, if you add a timer to a dynamic desktop, it would turn static. There's no way to add a timer to the desktop when you created it.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so this is also being added in 9.4. So this will be part of that release. You can now set timers on dynamic desktops and they'll update on that timer.
Okay, excellent. Good question. Thank you, Andy. So it is, yeah, you know, it's always a hard thing for us to decide what we're going to put in these Tech Tips Live when we talk about the highlights of the new version, and Jacob narrowed it down here to this half a dozen. But what do we usually, we're usually doing something like 100 different items, right, Jacob? Something in that ballpark?
Yeah, I think this version we have about 140.
Okay. All right. So thanks for that question, Andy. Sounds like maybe it's something you'd run into and forwarded to our development team. So that's fantastic. So yeah, here's a half dozen of the kind of bigger things. As always, as we're making improvements, we have over 140 new improvements that will be coming out with 9.4. All right. Any other questions out there? Why don't you go ahead and go to the last slide, Jacob?
Okay.
So February 18th is our next Tech Tips Live, and we will be talking about, like I said, those everyday GainSeeker time savers. I just about every week there's something in some application that you find out a new feature that was added, a new little shortcut, and it's amazing how much they can save time. I know sometimes too people are like, "Oh, you didn't know you could do that?" Sometimes things aren't obvious, whether it's the double tap on a space bar on a iPhone to get your period at the end of a sentence or whatever it is. There's often kinds of time savers. So we will be going through what some of those are in GainSeeker and helping you all. And we did get another question here. When is 9.4 going to be released? Like Jacob said, we're still probably 4 to 8 weeks away. The development's done. We are still very active in testing and updating some documentation. So we're still a little bit of ways away from having it available for download and for release. All right. Anything else you had to say on that, Jacob?
Nope, you got it.
All right. All right. Very good. Well, I think we are coming to the end here, and we certainly appreciate you joining us today. Hope to see you next month. And as I said, we're going to be trading off on some hosting duties. So I think Jen is lined up to host next month. Look forward to having her back here in the host seat. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week, and we will catch up with you all soon.